Faker is having the worst tournament I've ever seen him have, and it's not even close. I'm not here to flame the GOAT though, I'm here to explain what's happened to those of you who don't follow him closely. A player with his resume, 4 world titles, something Uzi, Chovy, Knight, Caps, Reckless don't have a single one between them. In 39 tournaments over 11 years, he's been top 4 90% of the time. It's insane. In the LCK's most recent split, Faker has laning stats that match Chovy, arguably the best laner in the world, so we know he's mechanically still got it. So what's going wrong? A player like Faker doesn't suddenly choke on the international stage. His resume simply does not lie. There's 2 major issues. Firstly though, I've got a video I'm really happy about talking about the state of damage in current League of Legends that is going to come out in a couple of days, so make sure you subscribe to get that notified for you. There are 2 major issues that combine into crazy amounts of stress, pressure and anxiety that just overloads his mental stack, and that's overall the reason we're seeing these plays. And I'll go into these reasons now. Not too many mistakes are mechanical, it's decision making, which is one of Faker's biggest strengths. He literally controls the team. I think this shows he's not there mentally, but what's causing that? G2 themselves have said T1 smashed them in scrims, but on stage they played it really close, and G2 seemed super confident about beating T1 in stage in losers bracket coming up. And after seeing T1 versus Team Liquid, I believe them. Faker doesn't seem all there. Firstly, wrist pain. Reason 1 is wrist pain, and maybe not why you think. In 2023, Faker took a break due to wrist pain as he couldn't even lift his right arm, let alone play League. T1 had to play without Faker mid, and honestly they were so bad, like a crazy drop off with and without him. They were so bad they went 1 win, 7 losses without Faker and weren't going to make playoffs. So Faker came back, and I think he came back earlier than he wanted to, which limited his wrist injury recovery time, and T1 shock started winning every game again and made playoffs. In a clip from his recent MSI series, he's showing discomfort in his wrist again, and I think the pain is back, or it's just way worse again and it never went away in the first place. This has so many effects. First of all, this limits his practice. LCK teams are playing 14 to 16 hours a day and value practice massively, way more than the Western teams. If Faker isn't getting the practice he wants, it's like, you know, when you have an exam coming up and you haven't studied, so you've got doubt, stress, anxiety, you're going into the exam nervous, you know you're not going to perform at your best. It affects your performance in the exam. Whereas if you studied for it, you know the material back to back, you've put the effort in, you go into that exam confident that you just get to showcase your skills. The confidence levels, the performance levels are just night and day. Faker is essentially that guy, but he wants to study for the exam, but he can't, which makes it even more frustrating. And he knows he's not given his, well, he has given his 100% that he can give, but he knows he can only actually give about 80%. And it's not good for the mental. I've actually had a wrist injury, nowhere near as bad as Faker's, and it was so annoying and distracting while playing the game. You're in game and you're thinking about, my wrist hurts. You're trying to make plays moving your wrist in a way that doesn't hurt your wrist, and that's just taking away your focus from the game. This is in Emerald level. Like I can get away with a bad wrist, but even I had to take a break from the game. You can't have a bad wrist and be competing at the highest level. It's just, you have to be competing at 100%. Second reason, and remember the idea is these reasons both add up, DDoS attacks. The LCK itself has to pre-record T1 games and couldn't play live because it was getting DDoSed every week. Then T1 go back to their T1 facilities, they're getting DDoSed there. They're getting DDoSed at home, they can't scrim, they can't play solo queue, and it goes back again to getting no practice, which not only of course is a real disadvantage. Having no practice on champs, having no practice on new metas like the lane swap, that's already a massive disadvantage. But again, Koreans really value hard work and practice. The grind is insane, and that's what gives them confidence. They've given everything to prep and be ready, and Faker simply can't do that. We've seen T1 with him, we've seen T1 without him. He's the heart of the team, he's the mind of the team. It's his job to make calls, do the macro, get everyone on the same page. And with these issues, the pressure, the stress, the wrist pain, the lack of practice, I think it's just too much for any pro player to deal with, even Faker. You know, it would be hard enough maybe an ADC who is just purely focusing on dishing damage, let alone someone who's trying to control the team. Your mental just can't handle it. Mental for me is 90% of pro play. They're all very similar levels of skill. There's obviously slight variance, but the gap between Faker and Chovy isn't massive. We've seen Caps lane against Faker and Chovy. They can do it. The big gaps we see are in the mental. A great example here is Bjergsen, NA, TSM, greatest domestic mid in NA ever, won everything, just constant titles in A. Never once performed internationally. He eclipses Jensen on a domestic stage, but internationally, Jensen has the mentality to handle it, and he carried games. He's had a much better international showing than Bjergsen. An example this tournament, look at Noah and Hans. I don't think mechanically they're a million miles apart, but look at Noah. Noah has melted this entire tournament versus easier teams. He just hasn't handled it. He's failed flashing over walls. You can see he's just not playing at his peak. Hans had a awful series versus T1. He got death threats, he got insane levels of flame, and again, I talked about this the other day, he had the mental, which not enough people are giving credit for, to come back and carry versus top esports. That's a difference of the player. I know Noah is never going to do it internationally. Hans, you have just seen that mentality to come back with. The difference at an international stage is all mental. The lane swap meta has also affected T1's playstyle undeniably. They used to smash through bot lane, so I think having lane swaps, the stars haven't aligned for T1's tournament. You can't win them all, and I'm hoping Faker takes a short break at the start of the split and the DDoS issues are resolved when they return to the LCK, so I'm hoping that Faker and T1 can be 100% and the meta is kind of fitting them when it comes to defending their world title. Subscribe as always, video coming in a